North Carolina lawmakers are back at the legislative building this afternoon to take a veto override vote. A couple of other things have been added to the agenda for today to include constitutional amendments. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie is live at the legislative building with how this all would work. So explain for us, Laura.
Chris, the purpose of today's session, at least initially, was to come back for an override vote on the veto of that bill that would shift power away from incoming Democratic officials. However, Republican leaders apparently decided to add some more hot-button issues to today's agenda as well while they're here. And none of these proposals were really on anybody's radar before today, including a resolution to add North Carolina to a list of states calling for a federal constitutional convention, also known as an Article 5 convention. The purpose would be to come up with a constitutional amendment to impose term limits, on the U.S. House and Senate. That would require 34 states to make a similar call, and more than 24 have already passed some version of this. Republican Senator Ralph Hise supports the bill. He doesn't think a convention would ever really happen, but he says the idea could scare Congress into taking action on its own.
When it really comes to things like limiting Congress itself, that most people agree with and is very popular, you can't wait on Congress to regulate itself. It'll never happen.
Given the results of the election in November at the national level, I'm concerned about all sorts of ways that our democracy and traditional democratic principles and institutions might be undermined by such a convention.
Now, that's Democratic Senator Julie Mayfield. She and other critics of the idea say once such a constitutional convention is called, the states couldn't really limit what parts of the Constitution delegates could propose to make changes to or just go ahead and make those changes. The Senate will also take up a constitutional amendment this afternoon to cap the state's income tax rate at no higher than 5%, and another that would add voter ID for absentee ballots to the state constitution. That's already required by state law. Both those amendments would be on the ballot in November of 2026. Laura Leslie, WRAL News, live in Raleigh.